Hey, what's up guys, this is Astranox and I'm back in another Epic 7 video. So Wyvern stage 11, let's go with this team. Yes, I'm using Diene. You might not have her, you can definitely replace her. Akatis is a very good choice, even though the boss gets 10% combat readiness when she goes. I believe she's extremely strong in there because your front line is getting targeted the whole time unless it dies, and then the Wyvern switches to a random target. But you can make your front line very tanky, and Akatis can put invulnerability on your front line, and she can also apply attack down to the boss, which is going to be very helpful. Alright, so I have my skills turned off for Taranor Guard and for Kise, because Taranor Guard, I just want him to land defense down debuff as much as possible. And anyways, the boss is immune to decrease of combat readiness. And Kise, I just want her to keep on using skill 1 because it deals 70% more damage to a target with barrier. Also, I do not want to delay the barrier phase with her skill 3, and the damage on her skill 2 is garbage. So if I do delay the boss's barrier phase with skill 3, I mean, barrier phase is a phase I can go through, and I can deal more damage, extra damage after breaking it, as well as giving me time to stabilize my team, aka bring Angelica's health back up. So barrier phase is great for me, so I definitely don't want to delay it, but it might be different for you depending on your team composition. Alright, so here's the skills of the boss. He just attacks 3 times in a row, but let's read this thing. Fire's protection increases damage suffered from ice elemental heroes by 30%, while increasing damage dealt to non-ice elemental heroes by 30%. So if you bring heroes of other elements than ice, they will receive 30% more damage, and they won't be getting that 30% damage boost. Now, when a non-ice elemental hero's turn ends, increases the caster's combat readiness by 10%. So initially I was running with Clury because I didn't read the skill descriptions, but Clury actually didn't help at all, because yes, she does land defense down, she has Aureus, she does heal a very tiny bit, but when the boss goes in barrier phase, right, the boss slows itself down by a lot. And what happens is that if you have Clury that is on high speed and she just keeps on going, especially if she's getting extra turns, the boss keeps on getting 10% combat readiness, while the boss is like slowed down by a ton during that barrier phase. And of course the boss keeps on getting 10% combat readiness outside the barrier phase as well, so it's not helping. Now this skill, super acceleration, increases attack after attacking. The effect can be stacked, so the more the boss attacks, the more damage he's getting. Dragon's Might is an AoE attack that happens if you fail to break the barrier. And what happens is that he will attack everyone, dispel all buffs, and then he will do a shockwave that deals additional damage, and the shockwave is where the big damage happens. And this fireball barrage shoots a fireball at the enemy, dispelling 1 debuff and decreasing combat readiness by 10%. After attacking, attacks the same enemy 2 more times if the caster has 2 or fewer debuffs, greatly increased damage dealt. Attacks the front row first. So what it means is that, let me just run this again. Well, Taranor Guard did some damage here. It's usually like Kise doing double his damage, and Angelica is always healing a ton. Diene is not really healing too much. Like her barrier, it's only Angelica that's getting supported from that barrier, because no one else is taking damage. Now this time Angelica actually dipped quite low. I did skill her up. She's now 044. She used to be 003. I'll show you my gear afterward. She's running triple HP percentage items on the right side. She used to have speed boost before, but it was much better to have health percentage. And she's getting 10% combat readiness reduction every time she's getting attacked by the Wyvern. That was the last skill I was showing. So you don't need to have crazy speed on her. You want her to be as tanky as possible. And like whoever your front line is going to be, I mean, Prophetic Candlestick is working just great for her. It makes it so she has well, much lower cooldowns, and she's able to heal for a ton. I've seen like 9,995 healing on her skill 2 after doing the skill ups up to +4. It is definitely amazing. Now Diene, I mean, she brings the attack buff, but the thing is, you can just kill the Wyvern slowly. You can, if you can survive this skill, you're fine. You can just chip away at his health over time. You can just fail every barrier phase as long as you have enough healing. You could bring, you could have 2 healers, you could have 3 healers with 1 damage dealer. There's so many different team compositions, but just be tanky enough. Just tank the damage. The thing is, you don't need to land a bunch of debuffs, but if you do, where is it? If you do land debuffs on the boss, it says that if the caster has 2 or fewer debuffs, greatly increases damage dealt. So 2 debuffs or less, you're still gonna take greater damage. But if you have 3 debuffs or more, you will not take as much damage. I'm not quite sure on the amount, but if you have some OP heroes, but I mean, that's the thing though. You're gonna give the boss 10% combat readiness. It needs to be tested, but like Surin and Haste, just like godly for debuffs, as well as a bunch of other heroes. But yeah, they're not ice. They won't get that 30% damage boost, and they will give the boss 10% combat readiness, which is not good, especially during the barrier phase. But if you're able to stabilize, if you can take the damage, you'll be fine. You could have, initially I was thinking maybe like build the Phyllis, then the 3-star Dark Knight, because she's like a brick wall. She has insane amount of defense. She can be super tanky. You can just make her slow, and there's that artifact 5-star if you have that. I mean, makes her even more tanky. But that was just like a thought. I didn't like work on building her. I do have Chloe, and I was thinking about maybe building her, but then yeah, I decided to go with Taranor Guard because he has defense down, and yeah, it works great. And he has skill ups. I have gear for him and lifesteal. But yeah, we know this skill. That's always the same deal. He has the barrier, and he will activate Dragon's Might if you don't destroy the barrier in time. But what's the thing with the barrier? Look, you see, like, some of you didn't notice in the patch notes, but I did call it when I was making a video about it. You are getting energy back. Not always, but sometimes. And it's a huge amount. It's a huge amount. And the amount of materials is higher. And yeah, I didn't get any good drops so far. Here's the battle result. Like I said, like, Kise is doing the bulk of the damage, but Taranor Guard is boosting combat readiness. He is bringing defense down, so it is definitely helping Kise deal extra damage. But you don't need a team composition like this. Just make your team tanky enough. Hopefully ice heroes, but you can do it without ice heroes. Just don't have too many of them. And yeah, the thing with Phyllis is that she brings defense. There would be permanent defense buff on your team. The only thing is that when the boss, if you fail to destroy the barrier, what happens is that he will AoE attack deal damage, small amount of damage, and then dispel all your buffs, and then the shockwave deals the big hit. So if you have barrier, you cannot rely on barrier to survive that. You cannot rely on defense buff to survive that. You need raw defensive stats. And what I had was this is my Kise. That's my Kise, but she is taking 30% less damage. That's what it was. Deals 30% more damage, and yeah, I mean, the boss deals 30% more damage against heroes that are not of the ice element. So these are her defensive stats. So keep that in mind if you're trying to tweak your team. She did survive, but that was with Clury with Aureus, and so Aureus at plus 15, so 10% defense increase, and 15% of the damage is redirected onto Clury. She did survive, but I mean, there could be a variation in damage. It could not be fixed. She survived with like 10% health. If she wasn't stealth, she'd take 50% less damage, but it doesn't work like that. It would have been dispelled from the initial hit, and then he deals the big damage. So yeah, you don't need insane stats if you're running ice heroes. Alright, skill ups real quick. So skill 1 is maxed. If I have my skill turned off, that's all that matters. Taranor Guard skill 1 is maxed. This is not maxed yet, but I'm not gonna invest more in here. Angelica, she was 003, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go with this team to farm Wyvern 11, so might as well just, I had some Molagoras saved up. I was like, you know what, the healing is great, the increase in healing here. That thing's on a 2-turn cooldown. I'm gonna use Prophetic Candlestick, might as well go for it, because I'll be spending a lot of time in Wyvern 11, and I want my runs to be as stable as possible. And I got a 10% healing increase there on that one, so that's also great. And finally, Diene, which you don't need Diene, because you have to remember, like, the barrier of Angelica and Diene are getting overlapping. They're overlapping, so that's not good. It's just I have her, she's ice, I decide to go with her, but there's so many different team compositions that you can run. You just have to have enough survival to survive that huge AoE damage if you fail to destroy the barrier. But I mean, if you're running ice heroes, you're not gonna be critted anyways. And the increase of attack is 50% increased in attack. And like I said, barrier is overlapping with Angelica. I'll make other videos with different team compositions and let you guys know what can be ran, but just like have enough survival and just go for it. Just tank the damage. So okay, so let me show you my gear. Just pause if I go too quick. But of course, with Kise and these stats, I'm able to destroy the barrier. And Taranor Guard for the defense down. When you apply defense down, you are reducing the boss's defense by 70%. So I had speed boots on Angelica and I switched them for this. It is much better. And instead of Prophetic Candlestick, you can use Water Origin on your Angelica, and you wouldn't need as much survival stats. I don't have Water Origin to test it. And Diene, I just made her as fast as possible. I actually had to remove the gear from my Roside and just put it all onto her. But it's Maga Raha's Tome. I don't have Rod. You could, if you have Shimadra's Staff, you can buy it for dust. Shimadra's Staff affects all sorts of healing. You apply it on one of your Soul Weaver and it's going to increase the healing of everyone in the team. If you're running lifesteal, let's say you failed to break the barrier, you took a huge amount of damage, it's going to boost the healing of your lifesteal sets. My Kise and Taranor Guard are both on lifesteal, and I forgot to show the gear on Taranor Guard, I think. Wait, did I? I think I did. I'll show it again. Anyways, yeah, this is gonna increase the healing of in my comp, Angelica, and yeah, the lifesteal sets. Just quickly. It really depends, like what kind of artifacts you have, but yeah, if you're gonna run a knight, if you're running like Crow in front with Aureus, and I mean, I don't want to make this video too long, but there's no debuff to deal with, at least, so that's good. Water's Origin, if damage taken exceed 20% of max health, recovers 8% health and increase combat readiness by 10%. The thing is, if you are receiving more than 20% of your max health and damage and he attacks 3 times, this is going to be plus 15. So it's going to be 15% combat readiness. You are countering the minus 10% combat readiness that he's doing to you, unless you resist it. You are actually gaining combat readiness with this thing, and you don't need as much survival stats. So that's actually really good. But you need to make, like, if you damage exceed, you need to make sure you're taking more than 20% max health and damage, but also you don't want to take like a bunch more than that. It needs to kind of hit that sweet amount between let's say 21% and 25%, something like that. And you could run Chloe. The skill 2 deals 2% of her max health and damage. 2% of the target's max health and damage, and everyone on your team that attacks that target will deal 2% of the target's max health and damage. So it's really good, especially if you have a lot of speed in your group composition. But it's going to be hard to actually have 3 debuffs for most players. And where is it? So, Crow. Increase defense for all allies for 2 turns, and this goes down to 3 turn cooldown. If you do have him, I'd like to hear in the comment section how he's doing for you. But Crow is like, he's a OP tank, and he's eventually gonna get lower and deal some damage with this as well. But yeah, defense up for the whole team. But I mean, it's mostly for himself in the front line. That's why I was talking about Phyllis. Phyllis can, well, if you have someone else that applies barrier, just don't use that, like turn off the skills. It's all about this. Increase defense when attacked, increase defense of all allies for 2 turns every 4th attack received. So you're gonna have defense increase permanently, and also you're increasing your own defense, and it stacks up to 5 times. I think it's 2% of your defense, so that's gonna be 10%. Yeah, the exact number I didn't write them down, but it's gonna be a 50% increase on top of that. So it's something like 30% defense increase plus the defense increase buff, which is what is it again? It's 60% defense increase. You put just an insane amount of defense, and let's say you're running a healer that heals based on the healer's max health. It will heal Phyllis like almost like fully, because you won't have that much HP on Phyllis, but mostly defense. So it's going to be very easy to heal her. And like I said, you don't need crazy amount of damage dealers. You just need to slowly deal damage to the boss and eventually take him out. You just need to survive that AoE attack after the barrier phase. So yeah. Let me just show my Taranor Guard gear because I'm not quite sure if I did show it. I actually moved a lot of gear from Abyss, item level 85 onto him, and it's working out. A lot of effectiveness. Really need those defense down debuffs to apply just to speed up my runs. But yeah, let me know in the comment section how it's going for you guys, and if you're having difficulties, just let me know if you can actually survive the AoE attack after the barrier, because the thing is, you could survive it, but then you're going to be hit with triple attacks on your frontliner afterwards. So you need to be able to tank all that on whoever is going to be in your front line. But yeah, you guys can help each other out in the comment section, and I'll try to help you as best as I can. Just let me know what type of heroes you're running, and which heroes you have available, and try to you might have to build some ice heroes that you had and you didn't invest into before, but wait on using Molagoras. If you have a bunch saved up, don't rush into spending all of them onto a hero before truly testing your team composition properly. But yeah, that's it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching. I'm Astranox. Like, comment, and subscribe for more. Press the bell icon if you'd like to be notified whenever I release a new video. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.